We're recording the meeting as of 6:05 p.m. on Thursday, February 10th. The Joint San Pedro Neighborhood Council's Environment and Sustainability Committee meetings. The meeting has begun, and we'll start with public comment. I saw Lou's hand up, or did you put your...
Yeah, it was a public comment about the homelessness count because I heard from Kathleen. So I was going to say, if you'd like to just drop by our public comment on Tuesday, that would be the best way to appeal to our central people. It would be a lot more effective if I just said it, because I say all kinds of things during the meeting, and I think some of them get lost on people, some of them they absorb, some of them not. That's just what happens. So yes, Kathleen, please come by. You're welcome, and everybody's welcome. But yeah, I think those are, I don't know if I have any environmental and sustainability updates per se right now for public comment, but yeah, I'm glad to be here again. Thanks, Richard.
If I could, Lou, I'm afraid our Coastal Neighborhood Council meeting this time is actually, because of the holiday, I think it falls on Tuesday.
Is it the following Tuesday, or because
holidays?
I thought you were Tuesday the 22nd. We're Tuesday the 15th.
Oh, good. All right. Well, maybe I can even. So you're Tuesday the 22nd? No, Tuesday the 15th.
Right. Right.
Okay. Never mind. I'm sorry. Excellent. Okay. Good. Thank you, and thank you for being here, Lou.
Yeah,
very much.
I'm pretty sure, Richard, we will probably have our agenda setting meeting on Tuesday, just because I think that we probably won't want to have it on the Monday. And considering the next week is on a Tuesday, we comply with our timing.
So that might be a problem, Lou, a conflict. It definitely is a conflict.
Okay, well, we're at 6:30. I don't know if you guys will be done by then or want to stop by after. It's up to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to introduce myself, then pass to a person. Let's introduce ourselves right now. All are as participants that are attending. I'm grateful to you all. I'm Richard Havanek, the chair of the committee, the Environment and Sustainability Committee. And I will pass the microphone to Kathleen, please. And then if you would pass on, Kathleen, thanks.
Sure. I'm Kathleen Martin, and I'm a member of this committee and a member of the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Nave. I'm a member of a support committee and a planning and land use committee for Northwest. I'm not a council member, and I'm not a member of the sustainability and environmental, but I'm very interested in several items that are on the agenda tonight. Happy to be here. So Lou, you're kind of next to me there.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Lou Caravella, president of the Central San Pedro Neighborhood Council, and we have a pretty packed agenda for Tuesday as well, so we'll be putting that out soon, and there might be some items of interest that are port environmental related and I guess landmark-ish related as well. So
pass the mic, please.
Oh, right. Sean Kearns.
Thank you, Lou. Good evening, folks. My name is Sean Kearns, and I am a field representative and grants coordinator with the Office of Congresswoman Nanette Barragan. And I'm also your neighbor here in San Pedro. Thanks for having me. And I will pass it to Alan.
Thank you, Sean. I'm Alan Franz. I'm a coastal representative, and along with Kathleen and Richard and Carmenza, a member of the coastal environment sustainability, or whatever the the current terminology is. Thank you. And I will pass it to Carmenza, who is muted.
So sorry. Thank you, Alan. Yes, happy to be here. I am a member of this committee. I'm a member of Coastal San Pedro, and yeah, looking I only can be in this meeting for half an hour. There is another one at 6:30 for emergency. I'm sorry, I have to jump to the other one too. Thank you. And I pass it to, let me see, who else is here? I think that's it, right?
To Bob Silence, if you would, Bob.
Bob, oh, my friend
You,
Bob.
Can you hear me and or see me?
Yeah, well, we can
Let's
hear
see.
you.
You cannot hear me?
We can hear you. We just don't see you, Bob.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think, how do I turn the camera? You know, I'm usually done, I do this on the computer and I guess somehow you sent the link to my phone to join. So I clicked on that, but
Well, it's in your email. The request to attend the meeting is the link for this meeting. So
Yeah.
that's where I sent it. But nonetheless, we've got you. So, but in the meantime, if you want to go to that email, you can get to it from there.
yeah, I'm trying to see, I see it there. There's a link, but it doesn't, well, there's no link in the email. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay,
I
there-
texted you, Bob. I
Bob,
texted you, okay?
He got the text, Carmenza. He has to go by email. Hey, Bob, there's a attachment in the email, and if you click on that, you'll get to it. It's the agenda that's attached, or I'll email to you separately. Hold on, give me a minute.
Did it come from you exactly?
Yes.
But
I'm gonna email the link. While I'm doing that, can you
yeah,
introduce
I'll
yourself?
just,
Can
yeah,
you
I mean,
introduce?
for people that don't know me, I've been around here for like 22 years in San Pedro. I'm not on the board specifically. I guess I'm the co-chair of the Cultural Arts Committee along with Carmenza, but more than that, I'm an engineer and a scientist, and I'm actually a naval architect and marine engineer. I went to a school called Webb Institute of Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering in Long Island some many years ago, and but came out to California, been doing electronics and electrical and power electronics, all kinds of stuff like that. So I have some ties into this meeting, two main ties. One is regarding that Alt Car Expo. I have some results to report, and also on the C40 cities and things that can be done with that. So yeah, is that enough?
Thank you.
Mhm.
We have a couple more joining. If you would stand by, please.
Here. If I join this one, okay.
Gwendolyn, good evening. Will you introduce yourself to the rest of us, please?
Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Henry, Chair of the Sustainability and Environmental Committee for Northwest San Pedro. And just had a final for an environmental class today, so there we are.
It's all fresh in your mind.
Thanks for
There we go.
Thanks for joining us. May we hear from Alma Park neighbors, please?
You're muted.
I think you have to wish Gwen Henry a happy birthday as well.
Okay, Alma Park neighbors, we're gonna hope that you're with us. I've promoted you to panelist. I don't know who you are. We don't know, other than Alma Park neighbors, but
Hey, there's Bob.
if you would introduce yourself, if you can see or hear us now. Okay, let's proceed.
I think that may be the gentleman that presented last week. I'm sorry, last month.
Chris, that's Chris.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was having some audio problems. Thanks for having me.
Who are you, please?
Oh, my name is Chris O'Connell.
Hi, Chris. And you represent Alma Park neighbors?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. We have a full agenda and already 6:15. I'd want to pass to, we completed public comment. Unless anyone that just joined has public comment, if you would quickly Okay, Alan, yes, please.
I'll just throw in a quick one for anybody who might be interested if you want to follow through on environment. Saturday at 1 o'clock, there's a minus tide, and at Abalone Cove in Rancho Palos Verdes over near the Glass Chapel, there's going to be a free public walk with a bunch of different walk leaders from the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. And unfortunately, you have to pay, I think, to park if you're under 62 to park in their lot rather than out in the street further away. But it's a hike down to a sacred cove. If any of you are familiar with that, it's got some of the best tide pools around, which on minus tides are often very good. If you're fans of nudibranchs, it's the only place I've seen nudibranchs around the peninsula. And there's a cave that goes all the way through Portuguese Point. How cool is that? And we can get out to both ends of that sea cave. So at any rate, 1 o'clock, you can sign up for it at pvplc.org or just show up at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands. I want to proceed to, okay, Gwendolyn,
Well, I
if
did
you
have-
could quickly.
Very quick. Everyone in Northwest over by Holy Trinity Church, there is another Alma Backyard Farms. Thank you for Alma Park neighbors. Alma Backyard Farms, every other weekend, there's wonderful produce. Their main garden is in Compton, but they have also created a community garden right there across from Holy Trinity. And you should go and check it out one of these Sundays, every other Sunday. They will be going to every week soon.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. I want to go, seeing no more public comment, to Sean Kearns. If you would, Sean, give us the update for our Congresswoman Nanette Barragan, if you would, please. Thank you, Sean, for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation, Richard. And also congratulations on the progress of all your advocacy for green shipping corridors. We're excited to see the announcement from Port of LA and Port of Shanghai. And I think it was the American Journal on Transportation had a quote from you in there. So we were glad to see that. Again, to the folks who haven't met yet or joined late, my name is Sean and I'm with the office of Congresswoman Nanette Barragan. I live here in San Pedro as well, and excited to hear from all you today. I just want to give a quick overview of some different actions the Congresswoman has taken within the last couple of months that I thought may be of interest to the Environmental and Sustainability Committee here. Most notably, just yesterday, the Congresswoman introduced legislation, the EVs for All Act. This would establish a grants program within the Department of Energy to support EV car sharing programs for public housing residents. This is largely modeled off of the program that we have over here at Rancho San Pedro, where HACLA, with the help of the LA Clean Tech Incubator, launched an EV car share program in 2020 with 2 electric vehicles. The program has received a lot of positive feedback from the residents there, as well as the community coaches. And so we're looking to expand that at public housing sites nationwide. It's very important for the Congresswoman's district since there are such large public housing sites located within Watts and other communities of our district, notably Nickerson Gardens, which is the largest public housing site in the Western United States. So the bill was just introduced yesterday. We were glad to receive co-sponsorship from our neighboring legislators, Representative Liu and Lowenthal. And there was also the backing of over 60 organizations, mostly environmental and climate, but also housing organizations and health organizations too. So the bill was, again, just formally introduced yesterday. We're still trying to gain more co-sponsors in the House. I believe it had 12 co-sponsors when it was initially introduced. And as we gain more support, certainly we'll be looking forth to bring it to the floor from a vote at that time. At think also a big topic on a lot of folks' minds, that funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law. When is it going to get through? When are you going to start seeing, roads fixed and brownfields remediated? We're already starting to see it's come into our communities. We saw a brownfield grant awarded to the LA Conservation Corps just last week. And so we're, certainly hoping to see more on the way. But in the meantime, the Congresswoman is staying active and making sure that we're advocating for the communities of our district to ensure that those infrastructure dollars are invested where they're needed most. So recently, the Congresswoman wrote 2 letters on this subject. One of them was to Mitch Landrieu. This is Biden's advisor on infrastructure implementation. And the letter, which was also co-signed by the other 2 environmental justice task force chairs, Emission and Jayapal. And so this was urging the administration to prioritize shovel-worthy projects instead of shovel-ready projects, making sure that infrastructure projects to the maximum extent are looking to achieve climate and environmental justice goals. And also there was a request in there to provide increased technical assistance for disadvantaged communities. We know that there's going to be a great burden placed on disadvantaged communities, especially with the local government level, when applying for this funding, whether it be the matching funds that are available, the prior completion of design and planning projects. And so the Congresswoman and her colleagues at the EJ Task Force are hoping that the administration heeds to this suggestion and really takes a look at this as they're processing applications for different funding opportunities. The other letter that was also within the same subject was written to Governor Newsom. As you may know, much of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding will not go just from federal agencies directly to organizations and local communities, but rather to the states first, and for them to distribute the funds. And so one example of this is the state of California is set to receive over $60 million to clean up abandoned oil wells. And so, there's oil wells in rural communities, but there's also ones in backyards. And when we look at Wilmington, Willowbrook, South Los Angeles, the number of abandoned oil wells and gas wells, the Congresswoman wants to see that those are prioritized, the ones that are causing the most negative public health impacts to our community. So I'll be sure to put both those letters in the chat here in a minute so that folks later this evening can take a look over them as well. I know the one to Mitch Landrieu has already been posted on our website. The one to Governor Newsom just went out, so it's probably still on the way to getting up there. And then I know to a lot of folks in San Pedro, a huge topic, and rightfully so, has been the DDT issue. And so in December, the Congresswoman joined Representative Liu, as well as Representative Lowenthal, and 3 other colleagues of the Coastal California delegation, and writing a letter to both Secretary Javier Becerra of Health and Human Services, as well as EPA Administrator Reagan, and requesting that they investigate the impacts of DDT in the ocean, and if it is, causing increased cancer rates in humans the way that it is in sea lions. I think it was the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito that had estimated that it's around 1 in 4 sea lions that have cancer now. Absolutely detrimental. We look forward to hearing back from the agency soon, and we'll share that update once we have. But for some positive news in the direction of this DDT site in the San Pedro Channel, was just about 2 weeks ago in late January. USC Sea Grant announced 5 research projects for the 22 through 2024 funding period. And one of those 5 is a study of the local impacts of DDT on deep ocean organisms living off of Southern California. Sea Grant, for those who aren't aware, is a federally funded program administered by the National Oceanic and atmospheric administration. The other, well, I'll have to, I'm not sure if Senator Feinstein has spoken with your group recently, so she may have already shared this, or her staff, but Senator Feinstein had requested $5.5 million within appropriations to survey and sample the barrels that were found at the site and to better gauge exactly how large this site is. The previous mission from 2021, it didn't end because they had already finished determining exactly how many barrels were there, or how much acreage was covered, but rather it was just due to time constraints and funding shortage. So the senator made this request. Appropriations, unfortunately, are still in negotiation at this point, but we are confident that funding for this project, for this survey, will be included in the final bill. And the other update on the DDT space is almost brings up as many questions as it does provide information. And that was NOAA and EPA and other federal agencies investigating the Montrose plant here in Torrance and their practices for dumping DDT into the channel. And after analyzing it, they determined that Montrose likely did not dispose of DDT in the ocean through drums, but rather through bulk liquid dumping off of a barge. And so there's no question that there's excessive amounts of DDT in this area, but it also brings up the question of what else was being dumped here, what else is within those barrels. And of course, for the cleanup procedure, once that is planned out or determined feasible, how to do that in the safest extent to make sure that there's not some interaction that could worsen this issue at any point. And then in closing, I'll just say that, while we're super disappointed with this current status of the Build Back Better Act, which included a lot of the Congresswoman's climate justice goals, namely the Climate Smart Ports Act, we're hopeful that in seeing the likelihood that the House will break apart the bill into separate sections, that we'll be able to see climate smart ports included in there. But I know I see a hand up with Robert, so why don't we start there?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment on that EV car share programming. Did you, is there a assembly, or is there a bill number for that yet, or a name? How it can? Oh,
Sean, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Robert, what I'll do is add our press release over into the chat box, as well as those letters I mentioned, so that folks can get a better understanding of the bill, look at the organizations that are also in support. And I'll also add my contact information in here so that any of you can reach out to me if you have questions at a later time.
Yeah, that would be good. Is it the same car share that's in downtown LA? The one on the streets, do you know? Company from Canada, I think.
So again, this bill just got introduced. So
yeah, it could be multiple.
Car shares have been funded through this bill yet, as it still hasn't even been voted on. I know that the first car share program that was similar to this was launched at Rancho San Pedro, and they launched one other one within a City of Los Angeles public housing site, but I think it may be towards the Valley area. I'll have to follow up on that part.
Yeah. I wanted to just comment. This is one of the greatest things ever, even before COVID. I was coming up with designs for Rancho San Pedro, and part of it would be that every person that had a place there would automatically be part of the car share program. As a matter of fact, they should have to give up their car in order to live there. And there's no reason for people to have cars and smog checks and oil, all of that stuff that goes with ICE cars. And, you only use it when you need it. Most of the time it sits in the garages and charges, right? And so that's this whole EV car share program is one of the largest factors. And I want to call her on that and commend her on getting that through. And it's a very, very, very important for not only low-end communities, but for everybody. Like, why does anybody garaging a car, especially in the days of COVID now? So it's like, It's a very, very important thing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Robert. It's true. I think for too long, the existing infrastructure has been too car friendly, and not enough looking at forward technologies and also just public transit and how to move people to homes and job centers in a sustainable way. And hopefully through this bipartisan infrastructure law, we'll see more projects that will strive towards that, and less projects that will look like freeway widening or other detrimental activities. Your comments, Robert. Gwendolyn.
Thank you.
Could we, I want to ask Sean and Gwendolyn, Carmenza had her hand up, then she put it
My
down.
apologies.
Are you okay with that, Gwendolyn?
Yes, I am.
Because Carmenza has to leave at 6:30 anyway.
My apologies, Carmenza.
No problem. Thank you for that. I found the information from Sean very interesting. He keeps saying that he's going to add it to the chat. I just want to tell him that we don't have that here. So if you can please forward the information to Richard and he can share it with us, because there is no way to have it in this meeting. And yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't notice that. Okay. Maybe if I could, I'll follow up with Richard afterwards and share these documents. And Richard, if you could be so kind to circulate them with.
We'll do. And Carmenza, thanks so much for pointing that out.
Oh, no problem. And there is no meeting. The meeting was canceled at 6:30 for the same reason. Then we don't have the share button here. It's the city side. So we cannot have two meetings at the same time.
Okay. We'll go to Gwendolyn. I'm sorry, Sean, is that all right?
Of course. Yes. Hi, Gwendolyn.
Hi, how are you? Glad to see you here. In regards to the EV car share project, I did see that nationally there is some interest and some movement on putting solar powered EV charging stations across major highways. I was wondering if that is something that is part and being incorporated into some of these community ideas, to have a solar powered EV charger on some of these public community areas, public housing areas.
No, I think it's a great idea. It is not a specific requirement within the bill that the Congresswoman had introduced. But I think that there's no argument against it, that having any of our charging stations themselves be sustainably sourced energy is ideal.
There are some very interesting designs coming out, and it's through the automobile industry. They're the ones who are designing them.
Oh, interesting. Well, thank you, Gwendolyn. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Bob, do you want to go again, and we'll try and keep this meeting going?
Yeah, a quick one on that. It's hard to get a lot of actual solar. I mean, so the area that you need is much bigger than the car to get enough energy to charge the car. So a lot of the energy won't come directly from that. It'll still come from the grid in some sort. But the best way to do that, it's still good to have the solar panels, and they provide shade for the car and all that stuff, less heat cooling loads and stuff and rain. But also most of it has to come from the solar. Every roof has to be made out of solar panels, basically, and when we do that and take care of all the issues with the solar, the different things going on in Sacramento and stuff regarding that, we have to make it very easy for people to put solar on, have a ubiquitous localized grid. So I just comment on that, but yeah, good idea. That's it.
Thank you. I see no more hands. Sean, I thank you so much for the comprehensive report, including detail that I don't know how you do it. I very much appreciate and admire your delivery, because you communicated so much and so much important and so many details, including, I thank you for including the detail, especially about the uncertainty of what actually was dropped in the ocean, which is something that is not widely known, I think. And I'm so grateful for you being here and sharing everything you just shared. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me, Richard. And I look forward to having the opportunity to follow up with all the other folks who are on the meeting here. I am going to turn off my camera only because I am super hungry. I skipped lunch today, but I'm going to stay in the meeting so I can continue listening in here.
I would be grateful if you would, because some of the next items are, I think I'm going to be subject of discussion with you probably in a future near you soon. All
Sounds
right,
great. Looking forward.
Let's move to the next item. Let me share the screen so I can see what we're talking about. The next item is the update regarding the zero emission shipping and the ports, San Pedro Bay Ports Clean Air Action Plan, which includes actually 3 or 4 items. I want to go over them quickly. On the zero emission shipping, some of you know, and I will need to, I'm clumsy with the share, excuse me. I want to share the important details in the press release. And though now I can't see what's, you can see possibly better than I, because I have, oh, there I can see, excuse me. I'm clumsy with Zoom, you may know. But I want to go over some key details, make sure we're all aware. And if we could spread this awareness, maybe some of you know, you probably do, about the great big announcement beyond the Clydebank Declaration last fall that the US signed along with 23 or so other countries to achieve zero emission shipping by the middle of this decade. The C40 cities, which was formed by, I guess, Eric Garcetti and some others, which includes prominently the Port of Los Angeles, Port of Shanghai, the cities of Shanghai and Los Angeles, and I don't know, 38 other cities, prominent cities, many along the Pacific Rim, importantly committed. This is a landmark, really earth-shattering announcement that I hope will yield the goal that is stated, which is to a goal to begin transitioning to zero carbon fueled ships by 2030. I want to go through the important details, make sure we're all clear. The 2 ports, that's Shanghai and Los Angeles, and industry partners, importantly, including shipping lines and cargo owners in China and the United States, have committed to deliver an implementation plan for the Green Corridor by the end of this year that will provide an outline for how they will continue to decarbonize this key maritime shipping corridor. The Green Shipping Corridor implementation plan that they're going to come up with by the end of this year will include deliverables, milestones, and roles for the partnership. That is, the maritime stakeholders, the technology providers, the engine manufacturers, fuel suppliers where applicable, port authorities, regulatory agencies, business interests as may be relevant, will participate in the development of this implementation plan to provide. Yeah.
Sorry. Yay!
Because it's one thing to say, before I pipe in, I want to say that the other details in here importantly include, and we cannot forget, we need to keep this press release handy. And Sean, I hope you're still with us. You don't need to say anything, but it says that low, ultra low, and zero carbon fueled ships through the 2020s, with the goal to achieve zero emission shipping by 2030. They call it in some references zero emission, and in others zero carbon. And this is by qualified and willing shipping lines. There's some room in here for, I would understand people's reservation or concerns at how some of this is written. However, I'm going to continue with the key points. The development of best management practices help to reduce emissions and improve efficiency for all ships using this international trade corridor. Beyond the ships, reducing supply chain emissions from port operations, improving air quality in the ports of Shanghai and Los Angeles and adjacent communities. So I am told by trustworthy, by the Port of Los Angeles environmental director and others, that zero carbon means zero emission and means well beyond the immediate goal of the low carbon, excuse me, I'm searching for the words they used in the more immediate term. There's a transition that's going to happen, and through the transition in the immediate future may include low carbon interim fuels. The phasing in of low, ultra low, and zero carbon fueled ships through the 2020s, with the first zero carbon trans-Pacific container ships introduced by 2030. So the implementation plan, which I had been trying to get anybody I could listen to organize the venue of the necessary entities representing the engine manufacturers, fuel suppliers, ports, technology providers, engineering, design people, budget people, to define the plan to achieve the green shipping corridor. Well, that was up until this release. I believe, and I am relying on the Port of Los Angeles so far, who has prominently announced this press release and distributed it wide, that they are committed, and I am told verbally and by email that they are committed to organize the venue to develop the Green Shipping Corridor implementation plan that will include deliverables, milestones, and roles for the partnership. My observation from the experience over the past 20 years is this is exactly the key that is necessary to get anything done. And the magnitude of the goal here, zero emission shipping by 2030, is well beyond anything imaginable right now, because the technology does not exist and will require development. So we need to take the opportunity to recognize the significance and to recognize the opportunity or responsibility on us to drive the expectation to follow through in the expectation that this Green Shipping Corridor implementation plan will be definitive enough and will be delivered by the end of this year, and to recognize that there will be an interim period of interim fuels that are not what we want, but they will be, as stated, low, ultra low carbon ships to get us through the 2020s to the ultimate goal of 2030 zero emission shipping. Big announcement there. And if I can get my screen, I'm going to stop sharing so maybe I can see if, before we move to the next two items in this one agenda item, which I do hope to cover, can I learn if we have any comments or questions, please? And let me bring in June Smith while I ask Alan first, and then Gwendolyn, if you would, please. Alan, yes, sir.
Thank you. I had to unmute myself. If I can deter for just a moment, I'd like to add my thanks to Richards for Sean's presentation, which was indeed very informative, and for sticking around. And I'd like to thank Richard for that really important announcement and an explanation of it. I think we all know that the devil is in the details, that the port's been telling us for how many years that the technology is not even on the horizon. So it's a little striking to hear them promise that it will exist by 2030 when they've been denying that. But it is very hopeful, certainly. And if they are indeed enthusiastically behind this, it is, as you have suggested, a very significant step forward. So thank you for being the bearer of that good news.
Thank you, Ellen. And Gwendolyn.
With that, I wanted a little bit of clarity. In your urging, and thank you, Richard, for being so persistent. At the last environmental meeting amongst the ports, you were very much persistent on some of these points. And for us as a group, what are some of the things that we can do to help support these goals right now with letters or anything like that? Is there anything that you would like to communicate as a group to them at this juncture? And was it you that were kind of urging a forum for all parties and an announcement for that and an organization of that, or were they discussing it? And what exactly was going on with that? And are they coming up with a date? And might it actually be in California?
Before we go to you, Bob, let me say that thank you for the thanks, Gwendolyn. And I don't know where exactly I had been advocating the very definitive definition of such a venue way beyond what's in the press release, because we did it from 2000 to 2008 with the low sulfur fuel rule, where we seeded the necessary entities, and it took 8 years, 2 meetings a month. So I've seen this done, never of the magnitude of a technology that simply does not exist by any means, beyond whatever Bob might tell us he may know. But there is an interim period, and I appreciate your question about what we can do. There are multiple answers, people smarter than me. I want to throw to you the suggestion that our opportunity here is to call on everybody we can that is in a seat of elected office or a representative, our state Senate and Assembly representatives, our House and Senate, our U.S. House representatives and our senators, and our executive branch. Also, gratefully, we have the County of Los Angeles, where I had been going to try and get some leeway on seating this very venue at the Port of Los Angeles. And for now, as far as I understand, it is at least forming from the Port of Los Angeles. I don't know if it'll continue here, but that's the first meeting apparently has taken place where they're trying to get this going. So it's huge. Thank you for your questions and your comments. I think it's up to us to hold everybody to the statements in the press release. And the first one is a definitive milestone plan by the end of the year that's going to establish the venue to hopefully achieve what up till now does not exist. If that might come close to answering or coming close to responding to your comments, Gwendolyn. If so, I'll go to Bob. Thank you. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for having me here. Did I lower my hand? There we go. Yeah, so the first, regarding the process and how this, and now I'm willing to go into as much detail or technical detail as anybody wants, but I'm trying to limit that as much as possible.
Not here.
Yeah, exactly. So the first interim solution, we have all these ships out there that we have engines that burn things, whether it's steam turbines or gas turbines or diesels or whatever. They burn things in there, and they're going to have to keep burning. We're not going to change them overnight. So we have to keep burning things in there. The first thing that we can burn in there to help other than sulfur bunkers fuel or oil is methanol. Okay, so methyl alcohol. That's the poisonous alcohol. It's got one carbon. And the thing about that is you can make the methanol from sugar or sugar cane, cellulose, and that's essentially a green thing, and that helps immediately with carbon part of the greenhouse gases. And but the problem is you can also, it's a problem and a solution. You can also make it from natural gas, and they call that blue methanol as opposed to the green methanol from plants. The problem with that is you're making it out of natural gas. And so the fossil fuel industry likes that. They can sell a lot of that. And that is part of the interim solution in order to have enough fuel to continue what we're doing that's somewhat cleaner and continue in that line. But the other thing we have to do is make sure the engines can burn all of these different fuels and things like that. Now, the other thing that never gets seemed to mention, and I'm not sure, I was talking to Richard about that, if it's a farm thing, is there's ethanol, which has 2 carbons in there. It's a much more higher energy density. Any engine that could burn either bunkers fuel oil or methanol could certainly burn ethanol as well. Why that isn't mentioned is probably because the fossil fuel wants to make sure they keep selling us methanol made out of natural gas, but that's just my surmise. But we could use ethanol in that. That's another interim solution. And of course, that's being made with natural means without having to dig up fossil fuels to do it, right? We grow corn and use yeast and do it the same. We have breweries that do that already and they sell it to us. It has a sin tax on it that we'd have to get rid of to reduce the price, but that's like the secondary interim solution to doing that. There's also some biodiesel and stuff like that, but there's many other things. One is wind. There was by the way, I just started conference. I haven't done naval architecture in like 40 years or something like that. I did mostly electronics and electrical and power electronics and motors and all that stuff. So, but I finally contacted some of the professors back at my school, Webb Institute, and I found out that one of them, Bradley Golden is his name, he put on a conference last November, and it was, I can go into the detail how it got started, but basically, if you look at that conference, it's called the Natural Propulsion Conference. And they're talking about carbon fiber sails that they can retract and things like that, and ships to, lots of interesting things. So going back to the age of sail is another potential, using wind power more, or wind for generators. And then also another thing, I was talking about the batteries and the fact that you not recharging the batteries, but if the batteries were in containers that you swapped out, just like all the other containers in your container ship, you could charge them ashore from whatever power you wanted to charge them from, which could be solar power and sunlight or green power, and then swap them out. So in mentioning that to this naval architecture professor, he said, oh, he's consulting to a group, a startup company called FleetShipZero.com, I think it was. Check it out, Ship Fleet Zero. It's a startup company. They're doing just that. They're thinking it's a different mindset, and I think they're at the point where they're figuring out how the size of ship and how you would do this. They might get smaller ships, more of them, and more efficient. And the fact that the fuel, electricity, is very cheap. It's the batteries that are expensive. So it's a different mindset, which is similar to using an electric car. It's a different mindset in the way that you fuel your car and think about all that stuff.
Bob, I want to say that, sorry, but we could have a more detailed meeting, or we could have a meeting more focused on this specifically.
Yeah.
Rather than, and really the people that I think you want to hear this are maybe with the port. But
right.
we could.
Just as a follow-up, I did try to reach out to Chris Cannon, and I left him several messages, and he did reply to the email there that you sent. but I haven't been able to actually talk to him about, setting up a venue or, further conferences, even with that school, because I mean, this is however we do this, electric ships, sail ships, all that is, this is a whole future thing, that's like this, we're generating the future right here, pardon the pun.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. And in the interest of actually serving the subject better, we could devote more of a meeting to this specific topic rather than discuss the detail here, because we have other items on the agenda that did not include this. It's fun to hear, but for tonight's meeting, let's move to hands. We had Lou actually put his hand down, I think, and then, or was that in error, Lou? Do you want to go? And then Gwendolyn?
Yeah, I just felt like I was kind of annoying people keeping it up for so long, or maybe not, but yeah, I'll go ahead. I had spoken, yeah, thank you all, and some great input there on the interim ideas for sure. I had spoken a little bit with Richard about Mr. Chair about this earlier, and sort of seeing like, oh, do we need like just from a housekeeping standpoint and neighborhood councils, do we need like a resolution or something? And he was like, no, it's already in motion. But then I did think maybe what we could do that we don't do enough of is really just promote this more. And, in so doing, of course, promote, the work that we do at this level, on neighborhood councils and committees and things like that, but certainly promote this more. And, I guess the usual things we could do would be, just trying to get in some news stories about this new shipping corridor and try to go to info sessions and do some presentations on it and things like that. And then certainly, of course, keep advocating it along through the process and the benchmarks like you were talking about before. But I was wondering if you, Mr. Chair, or anybody here had some other ideas on how we could just promote this, just kind of like as a win, but as a work in progress, and like why it's important, why it's huge, and what other people can do.
I can only tell you I've been trying to promote the understanding of this for years. I think everybody is tired of hearing me talk about the ships. I only talked about trucks for a while to fight off the natural gas industry. And I would like to get to that. And maybe we could come back to this as a subject of discussion for how we want to proceed, and have further discussion and debate about what might be some actions we could take if the committee would want to do that. Have further discussion of this item as Bob was discussing, some potential technologies is one, I think, result of this meeting so far. And number two, how to promote, in Lou's words, Lou, what would it be to promote the awareness or promote the implementation?
Yeah, I think it would be a combination of awareness and why it's important and significant and necessary. And then, yeah, because it's such a long process that, could have so many obstacles in the implementation, how to keep on top of it.
Thank you. I do want to say that before we go, thank you, and I would propose that as an agenda item if the committee is so prefers. I do want to say regarding Bob, the subject of the technical issues, that we are not educated specifically nor technically. I don't know of anybody who's experienced in the technologies we're discussing besides you. So I hesitate. I really think we would need to go get doctorates in whatever, or these subjects. Let me tell you that my perspective, my experience, my hard knocks have come through recognizing that much of this stuff requires steady, committed, regular, consistent participation beyond the education and the technical expertise. I don't think we're going to be the ones that recommend the specific technical solutions, the ones of choice. I don't think that's our role. So I hesitate to have I don't want to have the committee discuss the technical solutions. I don't think that's within our capability. Although if the committee wanted, I'd certainly chair the meeting. I just have to say, I do believe that we'd be overstepping our capability by great magnitudes. But we can certainly say what we want and why it's important and promote the understanding and encourage the likelihood of the outcome that's stated in the goal for the green shipping. But I will respond as the committee's prefers. Now let's go to Gwendolyn, please, and then to Bob.
While everybody was talking, I was trying to catch up on some of the maritime the shipbuilding orders for
The IMO stuff.
Yeah.
Tier 3 and Tier 4, yes.
Right, exactly. I know that over the years there have been higher restrictions on and cleaner designs on the ships, and you can't order bunker fuel ships anymore, if I believe that's correct. Since 2000, the transition was 2018 to 2019, I think it was. But anyway, with that, I'm wondering if that schedule is keeping up with these goals of cleaning up.
No. Okay, so it's a Tier 3 ship. It's dual fuel. They're not. There's no. The answer is thank you, Gwendolyn. And I do want to be sensitive to time and to a bunch of hands, but no, the Tier 4 requirement has not been established. Thanks to your California Air Resources Board, they are participating in that discussion to define the Tier 4 standard, which might be this very technology that doesn't exist. But Tier 3 was the requirement. All ships laid up with a keel after 2016, I believe it is, had to be Tier 3, meaning dual fuel or selective catalytic reduction, or there's multiple means to achieve lower emission, but only 3 Tier 3 ships, I think, have come to the Port of Los Angeles this year. Pasha has, but that's a whole, see, this is why.
Yeah.
If we're gonna,
the no was the good answer, and we can take that out.
Okay. Keep in mind, we would really have to get educated on this if we're gonna have input on it. Yes, Bob. You have to unmute.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say part of that that discussion of how we do this. One of the things I was always afraid of is that once they come with an interim solution with methanol and say, "Oh, see, this is good enough. We'll just keep doing that." You know, that's one problem. And the other thing is to think about is at my school there at Webb, the students have to do an undergraduate thesis, and sometimes they build things or make things or do all kinds of interesting stuff. But one of the things that could be done is to investigate a thesis on investigating the amount of emissions, or investigating how you make, like, in other words, if a committee in the Port of Los Angeles said, we want to figure out how do we make this transition, right? So many of these ships to this and to that and to whatever, how do we do that? Just the analysis of that could be a good thesis project for students. So if we come up with things, we can get the PhDs, the future PhDs, to produce the doctoral papers you're interested in.
Hopefully you'll make that clear with your inroads to the C40 cities. And on the interim becoming the solution, we have the press release as released. The interim solution exists. It's already floating around. It's the green methanol. It's already delivering cargo. So the immediate term, we're not going to. The press release goes beyond the immediate solution, which is already exists and floating around. Maersk is steaming with green methanol. So we can hold them to the requirement for zero emission. I believe if we do as Lou might suggest.
But
Let's.
Yeah, I just wanted to just jump in. We got to make sure they don't go to blue methanol because they can buy it from natural gas cheaper. Can't do that. That's the problem with it.
The only interim is temporary, and that is, I am assured by all the people that I have responded, zero emission not only means zero carbon, but I'm told means zero methane. So no natural gas, no renewable natural gas, but we'll see.
And Richard, if I may, it's not separate, but did you get that article? There was something I just read this morning, and I believe I sent it to you, about the fact that methane has a shorter cycle. The carbon cycle is like 100 years that they've been.
Yes, Bob, and we've actually talked about that in this meeting. Their presentations, everybody's had to sit through that. I made people suffer. They, it's a 10-year time scale versus, yeah. I think everybody's up to speed on the damage from methane in the immediate term. And I thank you though, Bob, for that. But there's another one where thanks to the people that have been participating that have learned, that know that from the work we've done. Thank you, Bob. Yes, Pat.
Hi. Yeah, you know, I'll be the first one to admit that I know very little about air quality work, what's going on with that. What I have been working on is a paper on policies and mitigation measures that the port can adopt, both as remediation for, you know, past acts, but also going forward as mitigation for future negative impacts that may arise in projects. One part of it is a policy statement. So I would be very interested if anyone has any suggestions on policies in the air quality area. Right now, the document only has two policies. One that would address statements overriding considerations, so that we get rid of those. But the other one would be, that's in there, is adopting the city council standard that they did last November for zero emissions, zero ship emissions. And the idea of having these things as policies that are adopted is that they become standards against which the Board of Harbor Commissioners would evaluate and require in future projects, you know, future terminals or expansions or changes and things like that. So, you know, if you have any policies in the area of air quality that can be put into this document, you know, it'd be very welcome.
Pat, I'll send you our latest motion on the city council resolution establishing the goal of zero emission shipping from last year. That would certainly be one all encompassing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For that suggestion. Yes, Carmenza.
Thank you, Richard. I think Gwendolyn and Lou hit the, I mean, they say something very true. Gwendolyn asked for support and Lou asked to create awareness. Someone else mentioned to go to the, I think it was you, to the assembly and all that. I think we should expand on this in a very simple way within our committees, within our city, because this is the Port of Los Angeles. And I believe that if, like Bob Silent, he started teaching me about this, I have no clue about this. And I know now the importance of this. But most of people around here, they don't know what it means to reduce emission, to improve the efficiency of shipment. You know, what this really means, what is happening with this merge between China and the Port of Los Angeles. So if we start in a simple way, telling people how this is going to impact our life, then we are doing something. We don't have to go to the assembly. We have to start here at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmenza. Maybe an article in a Coastal Currents. or as any others that you might suggest. I see no other hands, and at 7:10, I want to move to the next item that's kind of pressing on this this one agenda item, which is the from the Port's Clean Air Action Plan. They, excuse me, I have to stop one. Oh, shoot. The wrong one is showing. Please bear with me. Oh, man. Okay, can you see? I hope you can see a page from a presentation from the Clean Air Action Plan, which begins Port of Long Beach proposed funding priorities.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so the Clean Air Action Plan meeting was last week. It's quarterly. Usually there are like 150 or 200 people on the Zoom or in person. It was in person for years. Quarterly now in the compute on Zoom. Importantly, the Clean Trucks rate was a presentation in the most recent Clean Air Action Plan, and I want to go over some important items from that, moving from the ships to the trucks. By the way, there are now over 20,000 trucks that are in the registry that is the population of trucks serving the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. 725 of them already are natural gas, and 28 of them are zero emission. Okay, for some context, most of them are later model, meaning they're 2010 or later EPA standards. That's still highly polluting old style diesel, or fairly not modern diesel, pretty polluting. So starting April 1, 2022, $10 per load per container, or $20 per 40-foot equivalent, which most are, will be charged to the carrier, not to the truck driver, but to the carrier, for that will be used to fund the Clean Trucks program. The currently existing zero emission trucks will be exempt. And I want you to know, please, and to make awareness of this, there's a difference between the Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles that I'd like you all to recognize here in this Clean Trucks rate that is kind of significant. With all the effort to try and raise awareness on natural gas and renewable natural gas and methane, I think there was some success. Although an exemption for low NOx trucks at presently, for the Port of Los Angeles, there's a distinction here on the years. As Alan said, the devil's in the details. Well, low NOx means basically the way to achieve low NOx is with natural gas. And the low NOx is necessary NOx for the state of California to comply with the requirement to reduce nitrogen oxides by 80% by the year 2031. And the only way to do it is either through natural gas, which results in an immediate 80% reduction in nitrogen oxides, and in particulate matter that causes diesel. I hope you all know that. That's actually what natural gas does. It's a great benefit over diesel, although it releases methane in a manner that's considered to be as much as 80 times worse than carbon. Methane is way worse than carbon for climate change. I don't think it's the solution we want. I think it's not the solution that the ARB wants, really. But that's where we are. Importantly, the Port of Los Angeles, as allowing the exemption of low NOx or natural gas trucks until only the end of 2027. You'll see the Port of Long Beach is allowing an exemption for quite a few years longer. And importantly, the Port of Los Angeles is saying that any low NOx trucks or natural gas trucks registered after the end of this year will not receive an exemption. I hope you're all hearing this and that this, because when you'll see the Port of Long Beach, you'll see something a lot, very much different. The Port of Long Beach is allowing an exemption for the low NOx trucks through December 31st, 2034. That's 7 years longer than the Port of Los Angeles is allowing the exemption. The exemption is, let's see, through this, now I've forgotten the significance of this here, the distinction, it makes no sense really, through the end of 2031 for trucks registered by the end of this year. So through 2004, if they were registered before the end of last year, and through 2031, if they're registered by the end of this year. So it's a pretty distinct approach in the clean truck rate, in how natural gas is incentivized and how zero emission is incentivized. I'll continue, and you can see they expect this to raise approximately $90 million per year. This was a subject of much, this goes back years, about how this $10 per container is not enough. I've done all I can to try and meet with people to raise that, but do in my little feeble way. I have had meetings with people, but the 100% of the revenues for Port of Los Angeles will be used in the support of zero emission trucks and associated infrastructure. So although the Port of Los Angeles is going to exempt some natural gas trucks for a short period of time through 2027, distinct from the exemption from the rate, the money that is raised will be 100% devoted to zero emission trucks. That's the Port of Los Angeles. For the Port of Long Beach, we see that by the end of 2023, their money will go to help low NOx trucks, 90% of it anyway, and 10% for zero emission trucks. And after that, they might change their approach. So two very importantly distinct approaches from the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach in how they incentivize natural gas trucks. I would say this is pretty significant, another symbolic event, and it might have nothing to do with all the input from the stakeholders and community members that have been participating in the years over the discussion of the clean trucks rate, because something got through to the Port of Los Angeles. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that they responded to the input, if that's what did it, or if they responded to the reality that methane is so harmful to the environment. And thank you, Bob, for reminding us about the problem with methane, and that goes whether it's renewable natural gas or natural gas by any means. It's simply the methane slip from the natural gas, no matter how the natural gas exists. It doesn't have to do with when it's burned. It has to do with when it's drilled, when it's stored, when it's transported, when it's in your stove, when it's anywhere. Methane is slipping, and the amount is estimated to be 3% by volume consumed. Simply a matter of reality until we learn, if we ever learn, how to contain the methane slip. And sorry to go on about that, but now I'd like to ask if there are any questions about the clean truck rate, if I can figure out how to stop sharing here and see if there are hands. I don't see I do see a couple. And Sean, I do appreciate you're still with us, and I hope that the significance of some of the points here are meaningful to your office. Bob and then Gwendolyn, please.
Yeah, I mean, just really quickly, it's just, again, where does that natural gas come from? It's not some kind of green thing. It's obviously coming from the fossil fuel industry. But aside from that, no mention, I mean, in terms of zero emission, there's when I was at the ACT, was it 2 years ago, whenever they had it, Long Beach? I mean, everything, the guy that was there before there, he said, well, everything was, before that, it was like they were working on clean diesel, like 4 or 6 years ago. And then the next 2 years, now it's all like clean natural gas and they're doing that stuff. And then this year he said, wow, there's more electricity, more electric trucks, and there will be more. So, it seems kind of obvious to me. The future obviously is both not only electric, but self-driving electric, especially after, talk to me after Sunday when the Super Bowl is blocked by all the truckers and protesting. I don't know if you heard about that from the Super Bowl. They're planning on blocking the roads, and then all the way after that till up to the State of the Union, to driving across the country. If there were self-driving trucks, electric, we wouldn't have a lot of those problems, but I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Bob. Talk to the mayor of Ottawa. Sorry for that. Yes, Gwendolyn? I'm trying to get you to unmute. Thank you.
In regards to Long Beach, I do know a lot of people across the bridge, and maybe we can start discussing with some other action groups across the way regarding putting pressure on the Port of Long Beach for moving forward with some of these goals. With that said, at this juncture, do they make their goals 2 years at a time? Would it still be 2 years delayed or 4 years delayed if they received enough community pressure for making a change in their goals and incentives and things like that?
Well, I'm sure they would be receptive at any point, but what was the Long Beach says that they'll anticipate the transition by 2024 to incentivize zero emission, future prioritization review to include. Yeah, I mean, they have meetings regularly that are pretty well attended by people from the public, including me. That's Long Beach and Los Angeles. And many people have been participating in these meetings, doing all we can to have the greatest impact we can. So I would say we're doing what we can, but if you know people that could do more, that'd be great if you could reach out to them. And I'll stop sharing the screen.
Speaking of which, this PowerPoint, I had no success finding it on the website. If somebody could send me the link to it. They promised to post it, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, I couldn't see it either. It took some work, but anyway, I'll do that. There are no other hands so quickly. Let me go to my, if I can share again. The other important item related to the Clean Air Action Plan is, as of January 1st, 2023, all related to the ports and to shipping and to the emissions, the largest source of pollution in the South Coast airspace, and the largest single source in Southern California really is the ports, the largest single source. At the ports, the largest single source of pollution at the ports, both ports, is ships. Now on all except for one criteria, which is not really a criteria, pollutant like particulate matter and diesel particulate matter and sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides and so forth, the greenhouse gas. Trucks are slightly more than ships for greenhouse gas, but we're getting close to being able to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from trucks, and we'll go right back to ships. So ships are really the top source of they are simply the top source of the most harmful emissions to public health. So January 1st, 2023, the ARB rule that was first implemented, I think it was 2017 or earlier, that at berth and anchor emissions must be reduced. It was a phase-in increasing to the point of, as of January 1st, 2023, and this is at birth, not at anchor. They're working on at anchor. Something happened and it got split from, it used to be at birth, at anchor. But there's, that we've had some difficulty these past couple of years. I don't know if that's what led to it, but now it applies only to at birth. 2023, in less than a year, at birth must utilize shore power or something that results in emissions that is no greater than shore power. This would be a continuing reduction in the largest source of pollution from the ports. Half of the ship pollution is auxiliary engines and boilers. This would go after that 50%. It would be a significant reduction potentially. So I hope you all are hearing this. This is significant also. This is pretty big. This is the at birth emission, shore power, 100% is required as of January 1st. There's more detail that I've pulled from the regulation, but know that there are means to achieve what you can get by shore power that may include, near as I can tell, the language would allow, for example, generators that run on a fuel or run on an engine that does not emit more than something that I don't know what it is, but it's not diesel generators. It's low emission engines that would power the shore power or the bonnet that captures the emissions so that you achieve what would be shore power. So shore power it is, or the closest you can achieve to achieving no greater emissions than you would get from shore power. Now, the phase-in is still evolving. As of January, it's container. Most of the ships are container and refrigerated cargo and crew passenger vessels. In 2025, roll on, roll off the car carriers and tanker vessels. Importantly, Long Beach gets a lot more tanker visits than Port of Los Angeles. That's 2025. And then 2027, all remaining. Tanker vessels with steam-driven product pumps. These are details beyond me, but this would likely impact Long Beach more than Los Angeles. The rule would go into effect as of January 2025, and all remaining tanker vessels by January 2027. So the, what do you call it? What was that Alan said? The devil is in the details. There were plans that were required to comply by the end of last year. It was in the middle of December, to be submitted to the California Air Resources Board by terminals and ports. And the reply from the ARB is most of them were received. And the reply from the Port of Los Angeles is they think they've gotten them all in. I don't know about the Port of Long Beach, but this is also potentially very significant. So I wanted to share that, and before we continue. So do we have any comments on that, which I believe is more significance than anybody realizes, has realized up until January 2023.
How did they get the buy-in of the shipping industry to comply with this? I mean, they could go anywhere they want. That was one of the things that was always a struggle with trying to get this conformity.
Well, I would say this is only my perspective. I will answer from my perspective that the regulation can happen when the technology, when the industry is ready. So that's the only way a lot of regulation happens from my observation. So I believe the shipping industry has been, they have been participating in meetings with the ARB for years, for several years. The first rule in 2017, or the phase in on the at-birth rule. I don't remember exactly if it was 2017, but it's been a phased implementation. At first, it was achieved 70% reduction. It's been years, and the shippers have been participating in all this whole time. So I believe this is an indication they thought they were ready. Anybody else on that? Stand by to see if it happens by January 1st, 2023, and who's going to request deferrals and so forth.
One,
Yes, Bob.
yeah, just one quick one. Because they obviously pushed off the one, they changed it to at birth and not at anchor, because at birth you can have the AMP, the associated marine power, or alternative marine power, but you can't do that at anchor. So that, allowed them to, that was one of the concessions, I assume. Yeah.
Maybe it's that simple. I mean, maybe, thank you for that. If no others, let's continue to a favorite item on the agenda from previously. Okay, not quite. We have item number 5. Let me share the agenda. We have item number 5, which is the discussion. We have a discussion regarding the Alt Car Expo in Southern California and a possible local venue. And I included the item at the hope that the committee is grateful that the item was included to discuss the possibility of the Electric Car Expo, which might be of great importance, certainly to car culture Southern California. So I would like to, with your agreement, turn to Bob Silence, and thank you, Bob, for being here. If you would share with us on the Alt Car Expo and what you might be looking for the committee to do.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Has anyone been to the Alt Car Expo before? Santa Monica, some 20 years ago or 15 years ago? I guess not. Okay, so with that, you heard about it?
No, I live there, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there was this a show started in it was brainchild of this one lady who I just spoke with yesterday for the first time, and I got her contact information. About 2004 or 5, there was a show. There wasn't really much of any kind of commercial electric car. And so there was a show they held in a hangar in Santa Monica Airport, and it was like do-it-yourself kits of people that had lead acid batteries, and they'd make you an adapter, and you could take the engine out of your car and put commercial electric motor, and all kinds of people putting solar panels on cars, and people playing around with all kinds of interesting things. I rode a Segway there for the first time. Dean Kamen, if you know what that is, the electric thing, and they've had a lot of interesting electric vehicles of all type, but also all types of alternative vehicles. And one of the things is it very quickly morphed after a few years as electric vehicles started to come out. The Prius, and Ed Begley Jr. was always there, and what's the other guy? What's his name? Jay Leno, and people like that would come down, lend their celebrity and all, and they would have the first commercial electric cars. So I've driven every electric, not just electric, but the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and all the different vehicles that came out, any type, little motorcycle-like vehicles, and the first Tesla and all that kind of stuff. So at any rate, it's been going on. And it's always been in Santa Monica at the convention center. And when it got more commercial, they had a lot of people from Edison and all the car makers talking about different technologies for clean energy vehicles and clean diesels and natural gas and this, that, and the other thing, and infrastructure and how they put that in, especially in the city of Santa Monica, because they were really big on that with the infrastructure, the first wants to do it. So at any rate, it's a whole alternative car expo in Southern California. So you can look it up, altcarexposocal.org, I think, .com, at any rate. And so it's a place, part of this whole idea of the whole clean energy vehicles and, people not knowing anything about them or what they're like to drive or what it's like to drive. And many people haven't driven them. They don't know that you don't need smog checks, you don't need brakes, right? Because they're regenerative, that they're like 5 times more efficient in terms of the energy they use. And there's a lot of interesting things. So this came as a fallout for having a general car show down here, which the car culture and all that Southern California car show. But to have, this is an official, again, you can look it up. And I finally got in touch with the lady through Rick T-Bay, who's, they call him Mr. Altcar. But at any rate, in talking with her, they have had several different ones. They're having one in Riverside because it's not only just regular commercial vehicles, but also yard trucks and warehouse trucks and forklifts, and converting everything over to clean energy. So in that regard, if they had, I mentioned to her the idea that the Port of Los Angeles might want to have this, it would be a great venue, and it'd be a great place to have all different types of car cultures and cars and different vehicles for people to try and see what it's like in terms of the clean energy and everything else we've been talking about at the port. So it could be a very educational experience, as well. We have a lot of electric truck manufacturers. There's Fisker, and there was the other one, what's his name? But at any rate, Tesla's working on that. They might bring stuff. So at any rate, the idea was just to, if we can find, I'm sorry. So I did talk to her. She said she was very excited about the prospect of doing that. They usually do it in the fall, but they could possibly do it earlier. Right now, she's teaching seminars to agencies regarding this subject, I assume. But she said in the end of next week, we could talk. And she has like a checklist that she put together of the kind of things that she would need, like this is what you need in order to enable this show to happen. So I can report on that next time, probably when I find out more. Take a look at that checklist.
Impressive.
I'm sorry, are you suggesting the possibility that the committee might, through the neighborhood councils, request that the Port of Los Angeles host this Alt Car Expo? Is that where this, is that within what your discussion is?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly that. I didn't put together anything yet because I haven't looked at what's on their checklist and, what kind of things you would need from the city or,
So the concept would be to the committee members that if the Alt Car Expo were open to a change of venue, or a venue specifically at the Port of Los Angeles, that the Port of Los Angeles might be an attractive, for many reasons, spot to host the Alt Car Expo. And so are there any thoughts from the committee members on that?
Well, it certainly would be larger than, is it still being hosted or planned for the Barker Hangar in Santa Monica over at the airport?
No, that's where it first started out, but it quickly moved to the convention center.
Oh, the convention center.
Yeah.
That's a very large venue.
Yeah. And they, like I said, they had what do you call it? They had seminar. They have a lot of seminars. They held it. They held it in August this past year, but it was virtual because it was only all of the city leaders talking about infrastructure and how do you get the infrastructure in, and how do you put them in, whether you have them in apartment buildings and the laws and this, that, and the other things. And a lot of that stuff is probably going to be not taken over, but maybe Sean Kearns wants to talk about that too. All of these ideas of the car sharing programs and putting the infrastructure into, low income housing and making sure that all the charging infrastructure is part of the infrastructure bill, how all that gets implemented. This would be a place that all of the city leaders and from all over would come to attend those conferences. In addition, just the public just driving the cars. Yeah.
And do we have any questions or further comments, or do we have the thought that we would continue this as an agenda item possibly, or wait for Bob to come back with public comment? Do we have any input? I welcome input from the committee members, please, or from anybody. All right. Well, Bob, will you keep us updated at least through public comment?
Right. I'll find out what the checklist is and put that out to everybody and the things you should need and stuff like that.
Thank you. We'll proceed to the next item. I'm sorry, I need to share this. I am so grateful for your patience. Thanks to Alan Franz, we had a great presentation some of you missed at our last meeting on open space and green space, the value, the benefit to all of us, the value and the benefit to the urban environment and to real estate, even economically, health-wise. And the presentation is posted at the Coastal Neighborhood Council website. We had the plan to proceed to discuss follow-on actions as to whether we might review policies, position statements, or whether we might develop action plans to encourage our city, maybe our state, our county, our recreation and parks, whoever, to adopt more foresighted policies and actions. So I'd like to ask if Alan, if you might be willing to pick us up on what you might be proposing, how we carry this item forward, or if we do. If you would, please.
Thank you, Richard. As Richard alluded to, we had, I think, 4 or 5 people at last month's meeting. I don't know if that was because the subject matter was deemed irrelevant or what. But first, I'd like to thank Richard for that presentation on the update on the trucking and their clean mobility issues. On this matter, Richard, I know, likes to finish the meeting at 7:30, and we've overshot that. So I would be perfectly happy to postpone and follow up, but I would like to extend the meeting a few more minutes before what Richard alluded to is everybody's favorite agenda item. I have an outline I've put together, which I couldn't do in 5 minutes or something, but I would like to just touch on one of the items because we have Sean here, hopefully still attending. At least we have his box on the screen. One of the proposed policies that I think is particularly consistent with the priorities of Congresswoman Barragan is environmental racism and the inequity of environmental standards here in Los Angeles and across the country. And I want to make sure Sean is aware of an organization called the Trust for Public Lands, which is a national and indeed international organization. And one of the things they do here in the United States is they put together an annual park score, which rates the park accessibility of the 100 largest cities in the United States, and LA in recent years has ranked around 71st out of 100, which is not that great. And one of the proposals that I will be ready to present at some point in the future is to establish standards for proximity and access to open space, parks, and other green spaces along the lines of the Trust for Public Lands Park Score program. And if anybody is interested in pursuing that, tpl.org for Trust for Public Land is the site. They have an office in downtown Los Angeles, and they're a very forward-looking organization. I would, before relinquishing the mic, I'd like to thank Richard for posting the presentation I gave at last month's meeting on the sort of philosophy behind promoting open space and parkland. And just note that the city has been on a trajectory that I think works directly against citizens' best interests in terms of public health, of physical health and mental health and mood. Our quality of life is impacted by increasing density and by the reduction of open space and the green space. And there are ways to design communities or reinvent them in ways that do increase density while preserving open space and restoring some green space. So those are among the kinds of things that I think we could talk about in the future. I have a laundry list that I won't bore you with tonight, but I hope Sean is familiar with the Trust for Public Lands and their approach. And if you missed last week and haven't looked at the slideshow, it's more of an outline, doesn't include all the gory details that I went over last month. But at any rate, it's an issue that at least I think is important, and which I hope we can build some concern with. And just as Richard has spent decades on air quality issues, this is not an issue that has a simple one-stroke solution, but will require the kind of community support that Richard has been so much a part of. And I think of other San Pedro natives like Noel Park and Janet Gunter, who also have been involved in NRDC litigation and other actions to address air quality here, as I sit here coughing. But I have a grandson born in San Pedro who has asthma, which may very well be from growing up here in San Pedro. So we have issues, and I very much appreciate Richard's long-term commitment to pursuing these. And with that, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Alan. I want to ask Kathleen, and thanks for the thanks. Kathleen and Gwendolyn, if okay that we could go to Sean to respond to Alan's questions and comments.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kathleen and Gwendolyn. Sean, if you would, please, you have the mic.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Alan, for those comments. Expanding outdoor opportunities in urban communities is essential towards addressing public health inequities. Two of the pieces that you mentioned there, the organization Trust for Public Land, absolutely fantastic organization. I know at the northern end of the Congresswoman's district in the city of Southgate, the Trust for Public Land is currently developing the Urban Orchard Park, which will sit right along the 710 in an area that's highly industrial. Most residents in the area are at and below poverty line. It's really an essential project, and I know, unfortunately, the timeline on that one due to COVID has been pushed back a little bit, but ground has broken there. They are making progress, and the Congresswoman actually has a bill, the Outdoors for All Act, which Trust for Public Land was one of the organizations that really helped us in crafting the language for. And essentially what it does is it would establish a dedicated funding source specifically to expand outdoor recreation opportunities in urban and low-income communities. It would establish what would be calling it the Outdoor Recreational Legacy Partnership. It had passed the House in the last Congress. Unfortunately, the Senate would not bring it to the floor for a vote. But it is absolutely one of the Congresswoman's priorities as well. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Alan. And hopefully in this Congress, we hope the bill can achieve more success. Thank you.
Sean, thanks so much for responding. And I'll send you the link, if not the presentation, but the link to Alan's presentation. And can we go to Kathleen and then Gwendolyn, please?
Thank you. I have two comments. One is for Alan Franz. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think is it the one that I saw on the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council website?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm very interested in returning the coastal sage scrub to the Angels Gate Park and to make that accessible to the surrounding communities, particularly on the other side of Western Avenue, not our side of Western. Because I'm so sorry, I don't know what the direction is of that. It's got to be maybe north, the north side of, no, probably the east side of Western Avenue. So anyways, I would love to get your support in talking to the Land Conservancy and identifying some way to put together a group of funding for the California native plants. And we can talk about that, offline and stuff, but it was, I just wanted to mention that. And then I also wanted to ask a follow-up question to Sean Kearns, if it's okay. A while ago, I inquired regarding the DDT dumping in the ocean by Montrose, and I suggested perhaps a fund be established by the chemical companies so that the producers of these chemicals could pay into a fund, and the fund could be used for any sort of cleanup for disasters. This is something that already exists with within the oil and gas industries. Whenever there's an oil spill, there's a fund that pays for the wildlife rehabilitation and also for the cleanup. And I was wondering if you had any follow-up information on that from Representative Barragan.
Appreciate the question, Kathleen. Unfortunately, I don't have any information on that at the moment, but I'll certainly look into it and follow up with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to Gwendolyn, let me say, Kathleen, that I think it was thanks to you that I have the city council conclusion from in the 90s on Montrose on how they
Oh, yes.
So there is history of Montrose, not only with the city of Los Angeles, but also with the federal government. Sean, I would appreciate if you could confirm the conclusion of the Montrose settlement is years, I'm afraid might be years ago. And if Montrose is actually the responsible party,
Money left.
I think that's what you would find, that we had long ago accepted a settlement.
That settlement was for the contamination of the coastal shelf.
The 6 mile out. So, and Sean, you'll know all about that because you know the two distinct fields. But so there's, and I can get to you, Sean, if it helps to get that city of Los Angeles thing that I got thanks to Kathleen. But there is that, the history of the Montrose settlement.
Were the last of the funds used for throwing rocks onto the shelf? Um,
I don't think it was ever actually done.
oh, that's good.
I
It
think
was
they
actually
did,
going to be covered with
they did
silt.
2 test plots, I think.
Well, because that was the remaining $5 million left in that fund that was going to be utilized for that. And I wanted to know the status of that and if there is any fund left in that settlement.
I think they're still spending money on rehabilitation of wildlife populations out in the Channel Islands, among other places.
Gwendolyn, thanks for having the detail on that very much. But there's history. I don't know what it is, and Gwendolyn has part of it, and there's part in a city resolution somewhere, and then Sean, you have the other.
I know the son of one of the people who originated and brought attention to where the chemical DDT was coming from. He actually went into the sewers and traced it back to Montrose.
And you had your hand up.
I did actually, Kathleen. Thank you for your comment on Angels Gate. There are other parks within San Pedro, both county and city, that would benefit greatly, that are tremendous open space. But more than that, I'm currently working with one of the oldest community gardens in all of Los Angeles, and that's the San Pedro community garden over on Gaffey. And the person who's in charge of that right now, he's been contracted through the Los Angeles Community Garden Council. But one of the things that has been brought to my attention, water rates are going up, obviously. And even though community gardens are nonprofit, the amount of money for paying for the water for community gardens is going up to a point where it becomes, again, an economic justice, environmental justice issue. A lot of communities are now relying on their community gardens as both green space and a source of good, healthy food. And this is a time when that model should be growing in communities of need. And the water rates are a sticking point, and it's actually causing trouble in being able to provide that. So I'm hoping that I might be able to bring Jesse Dela Cruz into the conversation and bring him to you to talk about some of these issues. But it's a serious concern.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. We have Pat Nave with his hand up.
The attorney for the city of Los Angeles that handled the Montrose litigation previously was at the Harbor Department, is now retired, but still available. Lives in Long Beach. It's Dave McKenna, and he would probably be happy to come and, talk about what that settlement included and what its status is.
I remember Dave McKenna now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think Jude Smith probably remembers him too.
That was in the mid-90s, I think, the conclusion by the city council record. And I've got it that I'm going to get to Sean. Do we have any further? Oh, wait. So Alan, if I may go directly to you to ask, as you brought the item and we discussed it and left the item with the thought that we would possible next steps. So this item at this point, I can only suggest would continue as a continuing item on the agenda. I believe people were interested in what those next steps might be. So unless there's a disagreement, I would, or I mean, does anybody object that we would continue this item on the agenda? As you'll see, what might be action plans to get some action to adopt more foresighted policies and actions. Are there any comments on that, Alan? Was that your intention when you, I think, initiated this with the committee's support?
Well, I would like to be able to discuss some of the possible strategies to address and advance the concerns that were raised in the presentation last month. If there is interest in the committee, and I actually could get to you at least an outline of some of the alternative approaches I would like to take, so I can get that to you for the next month's meeting.
I'm interested. I'll second that.
Thank you.
I think without objection, then we'll continue this item on the agenda. And June Smith, I see your hand. Nice to have you at the meeting, June.
Thank you. It's a very informative meeting. I think that Kathleen raised a point that is important for this committee to understand, and that is what went on in the Recs and Parks Committee meeting last night regarding the plantings and the problems up there. And so I think that it behooves us to see what that motion was that came out of the committee about supporting native plants, et cetera, as a deterrent for vandalism. This is too important an issue to just take 5 minutes or so and pass higgly jiggly. I really appreciated Alan's very thorough report. And I really appreciate everyone's interest in this, but several issues have been raised that I think we need to tackle considerately and with some specificity so that we can not just talk about it, but get some results. So thank you, Alan, and thank you, Richard, and thank you, Kathleen. These things are coming together in a good way, and I think this committee can support what Recs and Parks is doing.
Thank you,
the
June.
committee, not Recs and Parks, but what the committee is, please. Sorry.
And I'm believe the committee probably will.
Yeah.
But I will follow the committee's desire to keep the item on the agenda, certainly. Absolutely. With specific action, I think that might result, as well as likely if there's a motion on the calendar for the neighborhood council board, we have the capability to vote on it without having a committee, this committee specific recommendation, but we can support it.
Right.
Thank you.
But that will help, I think, guide what motion comes out of this committee.
Thank you, June. And Alan, I'll be looking forward to that. Thank you. And as you said, the specific actions will help us. And we have Kathleen, your hand.
Yeah,
please.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to kind of plug in really quick. And Richard, I'm sorry to go over on time with this, but I'd like to just say that I, at last night's Parks and Coastline meeting, I was not privy to a lot of the discussion that happened before getting to the meeting. And independently and on my own, I did put together a nice motion to support California native planting for that Angels Gate Park area. And I'd like to, just, say that if the motion that comes out of our meeting next month or next in a week ends up getting muddled up with fencing and other types of stuff, I would entertain coming back to this committee and would be very grateful to get the support of Alan and the rest of this community to bring the California native plants as a separate issue throughout our community as we move forward. I think it's so important. My garden in the front of my house is are the Southern California coastal sage scrub. I also have the sage scrub in the back of my yard, and it's something I started with these 4-inch plants many years ago, and I'm very passionate about it. And I think it's very important for our communities to include this. There is I think it's between, I think the only remaining segment of coastal sage scrub between Santa Monica Mountains and Orange County is the rare plants of the Palos Verdes Peninsula, and the other spot I think is the Channel Islands. And as we, I just think it's really important, the protection and preservation of the native habitat should just be a primary focus for our community. And any time that we spend talking about this is valuable time, because there's just not enough awareness. And I just, I hope we can come back together and I have a feeling that the motion that came out of Parks and Coastline is going to go in a direction different than what I'm trying to put together. I'm trying to get buy-in from the Land Conservancy, which I'd like to talk to Alan about. And I talked to the California Native Plant Society, in addition to identifying some funding sources for planting a couple of the hillsides there at Angels Gate Park. And I'd like to just keep that conversation going. And thank you so much for listening, and for listening to my rambling and passion for California native plants. Thank you.
Again, at the risk of extending the meeting a bit, I'd like to comment. First, I'd be happy to talk with you as I have before. And I'd like to point out to others present that this is the concern for Angels Gate is something that Kathleen's been working on for a number of years, since pre-pandemic times.
Yeah, thank you.
And I certainly support in principle the idea of native plants, although again, the devil is in the details as far as that goes. And with that, let's hear what June has to say, I guess.
Let me say, Kathleen, that and to Alan and to all of us, the more specific our actions that you could recommend, the more likely we'll have an effective motion to move forward.
I can just point out a couple of the proposals that I was going to address tonight and can address next week is increased dedicated funding for public education and public service announcements on environment and health, threatened species, impacts of invasive non-native plants, and so forth, and increased financial support funding for school programs addressing these same kinds of issues. So there are fairly concrete proposals that I think we could advocate for when we have time to discuss them. Thank you.
That would be great. And so if we put them on the agenda, we can discuss them and consider moving them and taking action as you request. And June, yes, ma'am.
Just a brief response to Kathleen. I know she's concerned that the motion from Rex and
Parks and Coastline.
Coastline, I always forget the coastline thing. That fence posts not be included, and that we concentrate exclusively on native plants. But I would point out that Rex and Parks and the Coastline Committee is looking at a broader menu, if you will, than the Sustainability Committee. And I think that the focus here will not include things like posts. They don't grow anything, except maybe weeds around the base. But and so I don't think that that's an issue for this committee.
Perfect. And like I said, I'm actually not opposed to using posts. It's not, I think a
I don't think
hybrid
this is something
solution.
we should debate
Okay.
here.
I just wanted to respond to that.
I'm just saying that I think that this committee's focus is on sustainability, and that precludes putting posts in.
Thank you.
Thank you, June. And Gwendolyn, yes, ma'am.
This was just an inquiry with Alan. Alan, are you considering having a breakout group in order to discuss and kind of fine tune some of these things?
That's certainly an option, as in the case with Richard's work with clean air. This is not a one-step solution. We need ongoing community involvement for something like this to move forward, and it involves potentially moving on a number of different fronts with different agencies and perhaps nonprofits and other partners in the wider community. So there's not a resolution that would accomplish all that. It
Well, if
would.
you could put me on the mailing list and get me on that meeting.
Okay, well, the mailing list is you and me.
And me, please.
And Richard Watson, nice to see you, by the way. We have a new committee. Well, let me say, do we have, I'm sorry, and I'm out of order. The chair is behaving poorly, but do we have any more comment on the follow-up actions on open space and green space that we would continue to the next agenda? Is that adequate for now? Thank you. So we conclude that item, and we're going to close the meeting. Let me say that we have a committee member who joined us, who's on the committee, Richard Watson. Thanks for being here. We'll have more appropriate introductions at the next meeting when we introduce everybody.
And I was a half hour late, so my apologies. I'll connect with you all in a timely manner next month.
So great to have you, and Bob, as a welcome guest, thank you so much. And let's see, Lou, thank you also, Pat Nave, and the rest of you you're just regular old committee members, and I'm so glad you were here. And June, great to see you after a long time. So we have at least 2 items for the next agenda, and if you have something pressing, you might notice how we, with lengthy debate about each item, might be good that we go with less items on the agenda, so we can discuss them further and with greater attention. So are there any comments before we close, before we adjourn?
I have a quick request. Can we form a California native plant subcommittee for the sustainability committee, please? Or something like that? What do you think?
Broadening the topic and including that into something having to do with open space and green space.
Oh, yeah, that would be a better, I'm in. I would love to see that, and to have, to request that Alan be the chair. I'd be happy to set the meetings up and vice chair, or have Gwen, something. But I'd love to see an ad hoc committee come out of this group, if please, for our next board meeting, if we can take a vote on that.
We might not need to have a board vote if we're talking about an ad hoc committee. Let me make sure, but we might be able to form, you all might be able to form an ad hoc committee without, but I'll find out. And if we need,
it wouldn't have to start as an ad hoc committee of the neighborhood council. It could just start as an autonomous community group, could it not? And then
yeah,
it's at you all's wish. What I'm responding to Kathleen's, but I see that Lou has a hand up on this.
Well, it's a great focus. I mean, it could be done here, I feel like. I mean, if you wanted to start something else for some other reasons, that's fine. But I think this committee could certainly do that. And we certainly do talk a lot about the native plants and drought resistant plants and whatnot.
Well, it could be a whole conversation, a whole meeting on its own. And it would be great to be able to unify with.
I think I had my hand up.
If you would, Gwendolyn, let's hear from June. Yes, June?
Yeah, I think that let's go with Alan's report. He wants to meet with others, and that could be the beginning of what may transform into some kind of formal subcommittee. But I think at this point, let's not worry about the logistics so much as to concentrate on Alan's report and coming out with viable suggestions, however that is done. If we feel that there needs to be a permanent subcommittee, you know, concentrating on this particular issue, then we can look into the formalization of it. But I don't think it's necessary at this point. Let's just move forward as quickly as we can. I don't think we should waste any more time on formalities.
Yeah, and again, it's a topic that I think could stay in this committee, or it could go to Coastal Island Parks. It could go to planning and land use. It's a broad spectrum topic.
However Alan wants to move forward on that, I think is just fine.
And we, Gwendolyn. Yes, Gwendolyn, please.
With this in mind, I hope that everyone also knows about the NCSA and the Trees Committee over there. There are a lot of very good conversations coming out of there, and it's a good forum in order to unify all the neighborhood councils towards a focused goal that can actually possibly change funding and drive to create, you know, and focus on native plants and green space. And actually on the record for that, if as many people in this committee could join that other committee in the NCSA, it makes it that much more powerful. There's a lot of important things that are coming through the NCSA, and they are putting on a lot of pressure. And there's some significant things happening.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. I heard from many of you all excellent points. I'd like to continue the conclusion to the continuation of the discussion of Alan's original issue he brought to us, and proceed from there at the committee's acceptance of my suggestion. Or
Sure.
Otherwise.
Is that a vote? Are we calling a vote to continue the discussion at the next meeting?
Does anybody object? And Kathleen, I must ask, I want to honor your suggestion as what I think was for an ad hoc committee. Would the continuation of the discussion of Alan's original issue to discuss the follow-up actions, which might include the formation of an ad hoc committee, or the specific actions to drive some policy resulting in the efforts that we think we need. Is that adequate?
Yeah, I may have to think about this a little bit more. I think that my desire for an ad hoc committee is to keep in the sustainability, you know, under sustainability rather than parks and coastline or planning and land use, is so that it stays clean. You know, this isn't a public safety issue. It's not some other issue. So that was kind of my intention. I have put together a pretty strong plan for really targeting California native plants at Angels Gate Park throughout the complex. And it's going to take something to do it. I do think it can happen outside of this, outside of the neighborhood council. And so I'm just probably going to proceed, you know, like that, and then plug back in when necessary to get support and that sort of thing. I thought, I thought it'd be cool to do it here, but it absolutely doesn't have to. And there are so many groups that, yeah, we can just meet up. It's no big deal.
Okay, let's proceed with Alan's as he originally put before us, and continue the discussion at the next meeting, and see where we go. Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you all. Lou, Bob, Gwendolyn, Alan, June, Richard, Carmenza, and Kathleen, again, thank you all so much. We lost Pat, but we had, and Sean, but I think Sean heard, I'm so grateful, heard what I'm so glad he hung with us. So I'd like to adjourn the meeting unless there's any other comment. We'll adjourn the meeting, and thank you all so much, and look for your smiling faces at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard,
you.
for
Good
a
everyone.
productive meeting.
Thanks, Richard. Good night.
Thank you for your
Right.
hard work.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Great meeting. Thank you.